Couples, what do you want to get off your chests that you all may need advice on? Boyfriend got really rough with me and it scared me to death. The other night my boyfriend and I were going to shower together. I have a really hard time getting the water temperature right at his house because I'm not familiar with the knobs. Usually we laugh about it and he tells me how dumb I am. This time he looked annoyed. But still jokingly, he grabbed me by the throat and started squeezing. Then he grabbed the back of my neck and pushed me towards the knobs, yelling which one was hot and cold. I kept laughing nervously and telling him to stop, but it was starting to hurt. I finally broke free and ran to the other side of the bathroom. But he came and grabbed me again by the back of the neck and put me in the same place, next to the shower. Needless to say, I was starting to panic at this point, so I was yelling for him to let me go and started grabbing at him and pushing him away. But he was just hitting my arms. Eventually he let go, laughing, and got in the shower as normal. I sat on the toilet for a moment, still shook up, and he was like, "Oh, are you mad now?" I just dropped it. It scares me that he can overpower me so much and there's not much I can do. I love him a lot. We have issues. But this was just scary. Should I bring it up to him? Small update. I really appreciate everyone's advice. I also respect everyone who has criticisms. I seem very stupid. I confronted boyfriend over text and he is apologizing profusely. He told me I should break up with him if I don't feel comfortable and he doesn't know his own strength. He's also been blowing up my phone about moving in together. I'm assuming to make me happy. You're all right. All the classic signs are happening like clockwork. Thank you for being real and honest with me. Update. In my original share I told you all I was talking it through with him despite all of your advice. He did what you all said he would, apologizing. Guilt-tripping, saying we should break up if I'm afraid of him, etc. I went to work and he started texting me saying we need to move in together, to which I said no. He said I have a year left to think about it because he's still on the lease. He took me out the following day for my birthday and paid for the whole day. It was nice. He kept counting out loud how much money he had spent on me, which sucked. After the day ended, the honeymoon phase was over again. Back to normal with his moodiness, and screamed at me when I asked him a question over his video game. His roommate looked at me like I was crazy. I looked away. I told my friends at work about what happened. They're all a lot older than me and reminded me of events that happened between us I forgot about. I've come to work one too many times with bruises and handprints. I must have blocked those memories out. I'm very alone. I don't have many friends. The one I do have moved to a different continent. I can't look at him like I used to. I know there's something wrong with me and I need to seek help for it. Even now, I'm nostalgic for my ex who cheated on me amongst other things. I need to work through why I attach myself to these men and why I can't value myself outside of a relationship with one. I'd like to thank everyone that commented, even if it was to call me crazy. I'm getting my things together slowly at his house. Thank you again. Update. I'd like to add another update because I'm really upset. I talked to my mom and she asked if I'm exaggerating because I'm more sensitive than others. Now I'm worried I'm blowing things out of proportion. I hate feeling like I'm crazy. I have bipolar disorder. But I don't think that has anything to do with this. I'm just very upset and don't want to make rash decisions if I'm being insane. My girlfriend, 19, abandoned me, 21 years old male, at the hospital. With the most recent outbreak, I got infected with the coronavirus right at the start of it from a colleague of mine in university classes. It started off with just a simple fever and cough, but it developed to the point I had trouble breathing. I was rushed to the ICU, but thankfully only needed oxygen rather than being intubated and some medicine to combat my body's reaction. Still, I was scared crapless at the time, and with my phone I called my girlfriend and messaged her telling her the situation and asking if she could just text with me, since, and this might sound a bit dumb, I genuinely feared a bit for my life. My girlfriend and I were having some problems, arguing a bit more than usual. But when I told her this, I never expected her to straight up abandon me. She told me my problems were not as important as hers and that if I wanted to bother someone I should go bother someone else. This floored me. I knew she was having trouble with her mother because since the outbreak she has been quarantined with her mother. She previously was living alone, and her mother didn't want her playing games all the time, and that's her usual hobby. But the fact that she couldn't put this aside when I feared my life was on the line. I don't want to sound sentimental, but it broke my heart. For context, my girlfriend and I met online. We've been dating for 2 years, of which most of the time we've been physically with one another. I've traveled to her whenever I've had the chance and stayed there for several months and vice versa. For 2 years the relationship was pretty amazing, and only recently has it started to change. Lately, for the past 2 months or so since I last visited her, and since I have not been able to go there due to the outbreak, She has been growing distant. She never texts me anymore. She never initiates conversations unless I do so, and she stopped replying to my I love you with her own, or when she does it's meekly. On my birthday, which was on March, a little before I got sick, she wasn't even there for me. She told me she wasn't going to be because she had promised to play games with another dude. I told her she had promised to play games with me, but she was having none of this, and I ended up alone in my B-Day. I love this woman to death. I've traveled half the world with her. We've shared countless adventures, and whenever she had a problem I was always there. I dropped whatever I was doing when she had troubles with her college, with her friends, or just when she was feeling down. Now, she has apologized for abandoning me at the hospital, but only to then tell me she needed to vent to me and complain about her mother and friends. She didn't ask how I was doing, if I was recovering. No. She said sorry for not being there and immediately followed with complaints. Since then it's been nearly 2 weeks of her not messaging me much, not asking me how my recovery is going, not attempting to spend time with me. I pointed this out to her and she simply shrugged, apologized, but did nothing to change. I feel betrayed and abandoned. I feel like trash. Whenever I approach her about it she immediately cries about it, apologizes, and makes me feel like the bad guy for even pointing out issues. She makes no attempt at fixing things, yet spends all her waking moments messaging her friends and gaming with them. I love her. I don't know what to do. TLDR, girlfriend of 2 years abandoned me at the hospital and at my B-Day to go play games with her friends. She's been more and more distant lately and I feel like she doesn't love me anymore. Please help. Also, a lot of people say she is cheating, and on that I have a bit more to say. This will all sound very naive on my part perhaps, or just plain weird, but I do think she just doesn't really understand how some things look. I think she's incredibly naive on that regard, but she has always been loyal and told me everything in the past. Our biggest fight before all this was 6 months into our relationship when I found out she was going to this dude's house and sleeping on his bed with him. They weren't having sex nor cuddling, just sleeping together. But what the actual F? She told me this, that she was going over there to sleep cause he was a close friend. She told me this with the most straight face ever, like she couldn't grasp how this could offend me or hurt me. It led to a pretty nasty fight, but eventually she promised not to do it again. Later, when I was there at her place, she invited a few friends over. What I got to see was she sitting on the laps of dudes and cuddling them on the couch, and I was like, WTF is going on? Demanding she stop that BS. It hurt me like hell, but she wasn't trying to hide it. She did it and somehow seriously never saw the problem in it. She stopped doing these things after I told her it was either she stopped or I would leave, to my knowledge. To sum it up, I think she's just naive with that behavior, or at least I hope it is as such, but it does hurt like hell. Update. Thank you everyone for your replies. I was honestly looking for other ways out of this situation rather than just break up. I truly do still love her, at least all of this has been breaking my heart. But it seems everyone has the unanimous advice of breaking up with her. I think that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it a week first to calm down emotionally and mentally prepare, and who knows, maybe she'll apologize deeply for all that's happened and things will change. But I'm not sure how much hope I have in that. Thank you. This has been a wake-up call. Update. Conclusion. So I did as I said I would. I continued to not be the first to initiate conversation, and I basically got radio silence for several days. Every day I watched her be on calls with her friends and have fun, play games, but not even sparing a minute or two to ask me if I was recovering, or just to check up on me. I did get better and am now off the medicine, almost fully recovered. After several days of this, I do admit I did get a bit annoyed, and I kinda just decided that it had to end. I called her and told her that I had something serious and important to talk about. We got into a video call and I told her I felt ignored, thrown away and forgotten. I felt like I was taken for granted and told her that what she did had hurt me. I told her that this relationship could not continue if she didn't put more effort into it. I'm not going to lie. Part of me still had some hope that she'd somehow change and things could somehow get better after the quarantine. I was still a bit split, frustrated, sad and angry with her, but also, I still loved her. She made the final decision very easy. She told me she no longer wanted to talk. I insisted that this was important, to which she told me, F you, my problems are more important than yours, and hung up. I just kinda sat in silence for a bit after that. I don't know what I expected, but the sheer coldness and utter lack of care of what she told me. I was done. I am done. So we broke up. I feel a bit heartbroken, but less than I thought I would be. I feel relieved in part, angry and frustrated at how she treated me, and I have friends who are supporting me through this. Since then she tried to contact me, basically making herself the victim and fishing for apologies, saying how much I hurt her and how she doesn't know if she feels ready for the relationship anymore. To that I just ignored and told her that we were done and we both needed time to think. After seeing that, she backpedaled and started saying she loves me and that she is sorry, and has been contacting me non-stop ever since. She has not contacted me this much in months. I feel a bit sad with it all. I definitely loved her and I still wish her a good life and happiness. At the same time I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Thank you for the advice. My 21 years old male girlfriend, 22 years old female, got into a wheelchair. Don't know if we're compatible anymore. I know the title is horrible and everyone is going to call me an a-hole, but this is the truth. She got into a bad accident 3 months ago and is now in a wheelchair, presumably for the rest of her life. She's handling it like a champ. We've cried together a lot, but she's the most positive person I know. Always keeps her head up even after this. And I love her immensely. We are high school sweethearts, been together for 5 years. But everything that has happened has made me second guess our relationship. Recently I had a talk with someone and she mentioned how tough all this must be for me. Honestly, I didn't really think about myself ever since the accident. All I cared for was my girlfriend. But we kept talking and I ended up breaking down, because right there was the moment where I realized that this also has an impact on me and our relationship. One thing that keeps repeating in my head is when she asked if I was my girlfriend's caregiver. She has help that comes a few times a week, but I help her out whenever I can. Though she doesn't always want me to. And if we stay together that's never going to change. I know how cruel this sounds, but she will always be in a wheelchair. There's so much in the world we wanted to discover and do together, but we can't do it together anymore and it so breaks my heart. I am really bad at putting my thoughts into words, sorry. I just don't really know what to say. I love her to the moon and back, but then I think, what kind of boyfriend am I if breaking up with her even crosses my mind? We were planning to get engaged next year. She's always so happy to see me and knows I've had issues dealing with the accident. She's so selfless it's not even funny. Sex hasn't really been working and she herself suggested I get a friend with benefits so I don't get frustrated, but I don't know if that will fix anything and quite frankly, I don't want anybody else but her. Sorry for this mess and I'm not an English speaker. Anyway, this is sort of like a vent, but I don't know what to do. I sincerely don't. I know I should talk to her, but I don't even know what to say to her, or how. Update. First off, wow, apparently my story blew up after I went to sleep. I didn't find out until the next morning, because my girlfriend told me about it. I was so embarrassed and mortified. She had already read the whole thing. I honestly didn't know what to say. I could only say I was so sorry and that I didn't want her to find out like this. She was calm, told me it was okay, said it touched her. Can't really describe how I felt. We just held each other for a very long time. Might be weird, but I knew I needed to be with her when she found out. I started thinking about a life without her, and I simply couldn't. I can't give up on this girl. We've talked a lot about us the past few days, which was long overdue. I have apologized over and over. She's so understanding and doesn't blame me for having doubts. A person this special I won't find again. But I hate myself for having thought about breaking up. She's still the same person. I should have communicated my feelings to her. I'm a very lucky guy. I really do love her to the moon and back. Regarding therapy, I have called for an appointment, but they have a few weeks of waiting time until they got time for me. You all were right. Can't hurt to give it a try. Maybe I was unlucky with my former therapists, but I already feel way better now that everything is out in the open. And the girl who I talked to I've cut off completely. My girlfriend knew straight away who it was and wanted to warn me to stay away from her earlier, but she didn't want to come off as crazy. Didn't realize she was into me. We are doing some research so we can try to be intimate again, but we got time. No hurry. Thanks for the overwhelming support. I was lost, but I know everything will fall into the right place eventually. I'm with her till the end. We're going to keep open communication, which will be priority. We're doing very well now. She knew something was up with me too. She knows me too well. Hope everyone here has a great day. Thanks. My 36 years old female significant other, 41 years old male, of 7 years left, and I'm in a total crisis. As the title says, the father of my 2 children left about 2 weeks ago. When I say left, I actually mean, he moved back to his home country. He had been talking about going back there to work, as if there wouldn't be any work in any other country. I was reluctant to move there for several reasons. That's a country where alcoholism is sky high, his whole family binge drinks, and he has a drinking problem, which has been a recurring issue to me, and second, it's complicated for me to stay there due to visa issues. Last year he was there by himself for 10 months. His uncle had died, and he said he'd only stay there for 3 weeks, and ended up coming back after 10 months because you know that I had to work. Totally unilateral decision. Every single time he has been up there by himself, he failed at communicating and stayed longer than he had to, even though never that long. When he came back, I made sure that I knew that I needed to trust him, and that he had to cut down his drinking, which compared to the previous year, he did. But there have still been a couple occasions where he got to drink too much and then slept the whole day, missing things. One of which, lately, we had one last fight on a Tuesday about him wanting to move there to work. He said he'd move, and I told him that if he intended to do that, I would request custody of the children, so that I wouldn't be dependent on him for signatures, to get IDs, or deciding if we can go on trips abroad or not, as he's always unresponsive too. We had been talking about other places to move to, and actually traveled to some of them, but now it sounds like it was his place or nothing. I didn't understand this. 2 or 3 peaceful days ensued, then he literally up and left, ghosted us for a week, then proceeded to tell me that we were breaking up, and that me threatening custody was the line that made him, that he absolutely had to move to his country. At that point I told him that we would all move, that there would be no other solution, but he said it's too late, and that's the way I should have answered during our last fight. He now left, and despite promising up and down that he'd pick our son's calls, and my calls, but guess what? Now I have been severely depressed, as you can imagine. The emotional stress of this thing has taken a huge toll on my spirit. Last year's, now this again, except that this is permanent, and my children are going to grow up with a completely absent father despite my every attempt and going his way. Due to his words, I did feel guilty about not deciding to move there earlier, despite my reasons, but I thought we were a team looking for a middle ground. I can't stand my boys being heartbroken without his father, not wanting to call him because he doesn't pick up. How can I fix this all for them? My desperation has made me think to move there anyway, even if we are not together, so at least the children would be close to both of us. Would this be a valid choice or an irresponsible choice? I want to say that despite the drinking/unreliability, he can be a very loving person and someone I get along so well with like no one else. The lack of trust has affected me though, in a way that he made me more emotionally detached. Now I do feel guilty about that too, even though I'm objectively able to see why that happened in me. I'm really lost. Basically came here to vent, but an external opinion would probably be good for me to hear. I have 0 friends. TLDR, the father of my children up and left, again, I guess, but for good, and rarely keeps in touch. Unsure what to do to make this better for my children, or how to even explain this to them. Update. I managed to get a hold of his family, as he hasn't been answering my calls or my children's calls as usual, and I was trying to get them in touch with him. And surprise, he's not back in his country. Apparently he called them from Rome the day before. He has been there for 2 weeks now, since he left. His family was also surprised to learn about the lie. So, it's 100% clear that he has left for someone else, as he has no other reason to be in Rome, and lie about going back home. Of course it hurts like nothing else, but this is helping me with the self-blame and the guilt at least. I do recognize that I had become emotionally detached, due to lack of trust from past episodes, which I blamed myself for to no end after he left. But apparently I had some big-ass basis for having those reservations. I'll get a lawyer and fight for custody, and I'll try to heal from the immense pain this man has caused me and my children. Thanks for listening. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.